authorizing acceptance of 2022 audit. We have auditor over here. She would like to give us a rundown. How was the audit? And
I don't know whether she would like to, but we have requested
yeah,
that our new auditing the audit, and this is Ms. Valerie Dolan from Nisivocha. Thanks, Valerie.
No problem. Thank you for the opportunity. I first want to say thank you for appointing Nisivocha as the auditing firm, and we cannot thank the township enough for helping us get through and navigate the first year of an audit. The first year is always a little bumpy, always a lot of learning curve, both on our end and on the township's end on the way we handle our audit, and they were very helpful throughout that process. I do want to say the first thing, as I know the mayor had already said, your financial records are impeccably prepared. That is a wonderful thing. I can't always say that for every municipality that we audit. We audit over 90 of them. Can't always say that comment. What the biggest thing, what that means for the township is that as each month comes by and you are making financial decisions for the township, you're provided with financial records. Those records are in such a manner that you are making sound financial decisions based off of those records. That most of the time when we come in and do an audit, we usually have a lot of number of journal entries and changes and questions. When we completed the audit this year, we did not have, we had maybe 2 entries, and that was just a couple of small little items. So really it is an impeccable financial record. I do want to cover a few financial highlights for everyone. The township's tax collection rate is actually a 99.45. That means you almost collected 100% of all of your taxes within that current year. Fund balance in your current fund was a little over 14 million, which was actually an increase of about $975,000. Your fund balance in your rec and your swim utility was a little over $1 million, which is actually an increase of $430,000. That increase is actually, you're starting to see the increase due to the effects of the pandemic and the shutdown and the recreation office obviously rebounding. Additionally, in 2020, you saw the final payoff of any emergencies that were declared by the township as a result of that the pandemic. Your fund balance in the water utility was also a little over $7.7 million, which is actually a little over $2 million increase. That increase is primarily attributable to obviously a much larger water usage rate. We were in a drought last year. It was drought time, so you were using more, plus over 700,000 collected in fire hydrants revenue. Fund balance in, you also have some debt details that I do want to cover in your debt. As you said, you are a AAA rated township. However, you do have a little over what we would call $102 million worth of overall debt. Now that's made up of debt that's actually been issued in the forms of serial bonds, bond anticipation notes, loans, or also debt that's been authorized for which no final debt has actually been issued. That number sounds like a very large number. However, that number is actually 0.79% of your assessed valuation. The state allows you 3.5% or a whopping $370 million. So when you look at your debt picture, you can see you're very low debt, even though it sounds like a very large number. I do want to say that with this municipality, your debt is in line with what other municipalities and we see, and in our AAA rated towns, this is a common number that we do see. As it's also stated, this is a clean audit with no formal recommendations, which means it can be accepted with no corrective action. What Nisivocha does like to do is we do look at things that are either statewide that we see are becoming problems, or things that are the future, so that we always like to look forward in our audit process, and we do that in the form of suggestions to management, things forthcoming. One of the bigger things that we have forthcoming next year for an audit is there's a new accounting standard that will be required to be applied. That accounting standard will actually require a lot of work between the township and us, and that standard will start to disclose all of the subscription-based agreements that the township has. That means your Microsoft Office, all of the software packages that you're using, we're going to actually have to create an inventory and disclose that information now in your report. Additionally, there is a large number of federal funds and dollars that run through. Everyone had a lot of pandemic funding that came through. With that, always follows the potential for a future audit by the feds. So having gone through those programs, they were audited by us with no issue, but it's always a possibility that another of the feds could come in an audit also on the top of the work that we completed. And then lastly, there's a small one, just a reminder on ordinances, and any ordinances that are authorized, they really do have a 5-year useful life. So after 5 years, they really need to be evaluated and either canceled, reappropriated. After speaking with your CFO, it is a process she does annually. So you will always see that, but there are some, and they're actually on her list for 23 cleanup. So no problems there. I'm available if anyone has any questions. But like I said, it was a fantastic audit.
Thank you very much.
I have a question, if I can, Council President. Curious about the subscriptions
Yeah.
for next year. What is the reason for having to look at that?
Honestly, it was the reasoning, the auditors have been asking themselves that also. It really, most of the government accounting standards, which is what governments follow the FASBs, which are corporate. So the FASBs announced that because they wanted to document as an asset in their financial statements, those types of subscriptions that you're paying for. GASB's followed suit with their standard that always mimics them. For municipalities, because you are not a GAAP basis form of accounting, you actually are what we call regulatory basis for the state. It is footnote disclosure only for municipalities to disclose those types of agreements that the towns have entered into. Yeah, it's an interesting standard. It's complicated for the schools more so than the municipalities because our school practice are GAAP. So they actually have to record the intangible assets and any prepayments that they might have made on those assets. For municipalities, it is disclosure only. No problem.
Okay, so if I might, I'd like to first thank you, Valerie, for coming and presenting us with your report. I would also like to commend Mr. Cap and Ms. Russo and everybody involved in their impeccable record keeping and the running of our municipality. And it's a beautiful job that they do. However, I would also like to ask you, I know that many towns and everybody was involved in COVID, and we got a lot of money because of COVID. And we were able very happily this year to close the budget gap with the funding that we got from the feds because of COVID relief. That being said, we're not going to have that money. That was like $2 million, if I'm not mistaken, this year. We're not going to have that money going forward. So I, for one, I'm really nervous about what we're looking at for the next budget cycle. So I know we're going to be having a lot of discussions about that in the future. But if I know the audit, it's not your job to make recommendations on going forward what we should do. But I think we all need to be thinking about how we can trim the sails basically a little bit, or how we can close the gap without hitting the citizens with a whopping increase next year. I know we did have an increase this year, but it wasn't because of us. It wasn't because of the municipality. It was because of other issues in other entities that are involved in the budget process that affect what we pay in our taxes. So I don't know. I commend us. I mean, we did a great job. Thank you, Mr. Cap. Thank you, Ms. Russo. Thank you for everyone involved. But I'm really worried about the future. Thank you.
Council President. So if I could address that, first of all, we appreciate the accolades. It's tough to run it the right way, but everybody here has it going the right way. The $2 million that came back in COVID money, we felt it was important to give it back to the taxpayers. And that's what we did this year. If you heard the report, we're almost $1 million ahead in surplus as we were year over year. So that makes up $1 million right there. And if you look through each of the accounts, we've budgeted a lot as a council through our budget, through your approval for snow removal, and we didn't have that much snow this year. So there are now we have the second half of the year. So we're not as far off as you think we are, and we could be very diligent. We will get there together as we have year over year. It takes work. Some years are harder than others, but I thought it was really important to give the money back to the taxpayers. It was their money, and I think that was the right move, and I'll stick by it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Again,
agree.
Mr. Cap and Lori Russo, CFO, wonderful job, and what we got from our audit, because we hired this time different auditor once we came. We want to see how the audit looked, and again, It came out wonderful, and we are very happy that how you managing it and how the CFO managing it. The most important thing is 0.79 is the debt. It's supposed, I mean, it goes 3.1, 3.5%.
3.5, yes.
So we're still in a good
You're
shape.
still, while it sounds, like I said, while it sounds like a really big number, it's really not in the allowability of over 370 million that you could, under state rules, have.
I also wanted to point out, you did state that $100+ million of debt, you also included projects that we did not actually go to bond for,
Right,
correct?
they've been authorized through an ordinance but which they're still either have not spent or you have not needed to authorize that money.
So that 0.79 is actually not really all of the
All
debt
the
that we're
actual
actually using.
official issue debt.
Correct.
Your officially issued debt, but eventually either the authorized but not issued portion either will become authorized or it will actually get canceled if the ordinances are unspent. And the likelihood and the best plan is usually as old debt, new debts fall, the new debt comes on, as old debt comes off, which is what keeps that AAA rating, is really that balance. And then you will have, as you won't be adding new, as you pull that money out of the authorized and issue it, you'll be paying off existing debt.
Correct.
So that it should stay consistent year to year at that 0.79%.
Exactly. And it is also somewhat similar to like your personal credit rating. If you have, say $20,000 worth of usable debt, but you don't actually use all of that credit.
Correct.
So just pointing that
There's
out.
two pieces,
Thank
and
you.
that's why I was trying to be clear that there was really, so issue debt is closer to about, not related to utilities, it's like 60 million. So, but the utilities are in there at about another 36.
Thank you for pointing that
Sure
out.
thing.
So just, Council President, just we're clear, we have low debt compared to the other towns you're doing.
Correct. You don't have, you're right in line with our large municipalities. You don't see, I mean, I do have some towns that are that 1.5% of their allowable 3. You're not even breaching, you're at that 3/4 of that percent, so.
Thank you. Mr. Kappa, some comments.
Hey, Council President, real quick, and we go over this during the budget process, and you'll all recall when a question comes up about the water utility, for example, and one of the council members will ask for clarification and say, is this paid for by the general taxpayer or by the water user? And the reason I bring that up, I know you all recall those discussions, is that in the form of accounting that the auditor has referenced, fund-based accounting, regulatory-based, each of these entities, the general fund, the water fund, the recreation and swim fund, have their own revenue sources, independent sources, and there's a different customer base for each. So while, as the auditor pointed out, and thank you for the presentation and for the great report, we're super happy about it. Just want to remind everybody that $100 million number, right, is really in 3 separate enterprises, if you will, with 3 separate revenue sources. Important to keep that in mind. And I know when we talk about the budget, you'll continue to ask that same question. Just so I'm clear, who's paying for this water repair? The answer is the water customer is, not the general taxpayer. And it has its own balance sheet, the water fund. The auditor pointed out that the surplus in the water fund has increased a little over $2 million. Surplus in the general fund, a little over $1 million. Surplus in the recreation fund, so on and so forth. They have their own fund balance, their own expense side, their own revenue side. I just wanted to make sure that was clear to everybody. Mayor, did I miss anything on that?
No, I'm just curious, why was it presented as an overall debt when you're, because
the overall debt is in the calculation of the 0.7. All the pieces come together in that calculation.
in that, but the obligation.
But the obligations, right.
So just the taxpayer obligation is not 103, it's much less than that.
The taxpayers, this is 63.
Yeah, and that, has all of that been issued?
No.
Right, so how much is the actual issued amount of bonds owed by
bonds?
Marlboro taxpayers?
I sure can give you that. Give me 2 seconds to flip to that page for you.
It's 40.
Overall issued is just a little over 47 million.
So it's 47 million is what
On the
our
taxpayers.
taxpayers owe today.
So this is the problem. People are talking about 103, and that's, that's just
It's not,
confusion.
it's not, well, it's why you have to, it's the questions.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
it's
that's why
pieces.
I, for one, pushed. I mean, I know this has never been done before, but I felt that it was important to do it because there's so much misinformation going on around. And I mean, we hear it all the time, oh, we're this much in debt, we're that, oh, heavens, the sky is falling. But, we need to really know, and we do up here, we really know what the hell is going on, So thank you to Valerie for really putting it out there.
Tony, do you feel better now about it?
I do.
Okay.
Do you? I do too.
I've been telling you our debt wasn't that high for a long time.
Get ready to
2 seconds. I'm
Sure.
sorry, last
Go
thing.
ahead, go
And
for it.
just so we're all clear, so there is a component of the 60 million number, which is authorized but not issued, right? Of the
47 million.
of the remaining 47, right, there's not only, of that number, 39 million worth of bonds have been issued. So when people ask the question different ways, for example, we have so many bonds outstanding, right? The answer to that question is a different question, right? It's 39 million.
Yep.
And there is a short-term note out there for 8 million at year end to get you to your 47 million. Just keep that in mind. When somebody's throwing out the word bond, they're going to get an answer to that question. Just thought it was important to clarify. Thank you.
We have
So
to
you-
schedule what's coming due and when and all that. We know that.
I really thank you for your services and Miss Lori Russo services.
And we're not going to ever let you retire. You know this, right?
And I will buy the coffee or dinner on me whenever you have time.
That's okay. We don't eat or drink here, Council President. Thank you very much to all of you. Appreciate
All
it.
right, roll call, please. Now I need a motion to adopt this resolution. Second,
Thank you
please.
again for your time.
Second.
Thank you, Valerie.
Second, see you, President.
Roll call, please.
Councilmembers Denuso,
Yes.
Harder. Yes. Millman,
Yes.
Scalia,
Yes.
Ozzie.
Yes.